Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Revenue with Zach Hussion. Happy Wednesday, October 29th, my friend. How you doing?
We are doing just dandy. Been busy, busy with some new projects, some new clients. Comes in waves, and life is good in the downtimes and the uptimes. Um,
Well, first things first,
yeah.
any are we doing anything for Halloween? Is that something that happens in the Hussion
There, I
space?
have I have three different outfits that I've accumulated over the last couple of years here. As we went from like no trick or treaters on our street to the town putting a sidewalk in on our street to us having we literally advertised one year for trick or treaters. We went around and put flyers in people's mailboxes that looked like they might had kids. It was kind of it was really hilarious. My wife and I had a good time with that, and we had a bunch of people show up. Um, so I have my old man creepy mask here, which I scared the crap out of my wife the other night. Oh my god. Oh, I'll never live that one down. I have a little werewolf mask that my 4-year-old nephew loves to run around. I like probably since he's been 2, he's been wearing this thing around. It's hilarious. It's a giant head with his big hands, and he's running around in diapers. And then this year, I got a Happy Gilmore get up. So I have like, the Bruins jersey and the Adidas green pants and the Timberland boots. And I got to find something to make a flask out of, I feel like.
There we go.
Have you seen the Happy Gilmore 2 yet?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So,
Oh, yeah.
I got a couple options here. I don't think it would really work well with the mask and the microphone. So I'll spare you guys from that. But potentially some interesting video content for next year.
Yes. Something to think about for sure. We'll have to get
Yeah.
Rob Jones involved and see how we can have like a Halloween HubSpot Halloween,
Yeah.
right? Orange. It's in line with the brand.
It's in
Sure.
line. Yeah,
Sure. Well.
exactly.
Um,
Yeah. So, how's your week going? Pretty
let's.
good.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm excited for this conversation
Yeah, me too.
because we get to talk about something else that's scaring the crap out of us right
Yeah,
now.
sure.
Oh, we get it, folks. You bought HubSpot either yesterday or 6 months ago. It hasn't been working for you. You feel it. You know that you've spent money on it, and you just want to get in there and can we just start using HubSpot? Um,
Yep.
so you ask some fine folks like me or Zach or one of the other 100 pros from Profoundly to get you trained to tell you what HubSpot's all about. And then we get in there and we start having conversations like, well, we don't really call it deals, or we don't know that companies like that doesn't make sense to us in our process. Well, spoiler alert, the fact that we haven't solved that part of what our company does call it and why and how it fits into our strategy, which is what we're going to talk about, process before platform today.
Hmm.
If we wait to have those conversations until we get into the platform, it makes everything take longer, cost more money, leads to all the adoption issues that we're used to.
Hmm.
And we're trying to help you with that today because we know it's hard to like step back from the excitement of purchasing a new system, shiny new tool. Let's
Sure.
get in there. But
Especially with sales, who's like, they're high pressure, go. Speed is at the forefront of a lot of things that they do, right or wrong, right?
yeah, and I'd say like that. Let me preface with this: like, if here's where everything just gets easier. Like, if you can understand what you want to do with HubSpot as a business, and these are gonna sound, super fluffy as they come out of my mouth, but they are powerful centralizing um, uh, factors when we can agree on something before we get into these conversations. And then does it point to that thing we agree on or not? And just get very black and white about how we move through conversations. Unified customer view, right? Is that a goal for our business? Do we understand that that would be a good thing for our teams and our leadership to understand the health of our business. Unified revenue view. Now that we want to use AI, we need unified business context if we can get there. And I'm going to call this one unified team enablement. But what it is that we have a system that everybody uses, everybody likes to use, and everybody agrees that it helps them get their job done. Right? You may have heard it said, we don't want to work for the system. We want the system to work for us. Right? If we can agree on those things out of the gate, like it makes all of these other conversations and adoption moments, training moments, even the ability to take a step back. What does a deal or opportunity actually, like, can we define that? Do we agree? Can we ask our 5 different people on the sales team and they're all going to give us the same answer about when it becomes a deal?
Yeah. I mean, take
information
HubSpot out of the equation, right? Like the fact that you may be onboarding a team and firing up a whole new platform, right, and going through this technology transformation. Take that aside. It's still a good idea to really understand these things and have these definitions and processes, mapped out and that's how you get alignment by putting it all down on paper and having these conversations, sometimes some healthy debates about what things should be and why, but really getting to the why behind it, right? So it's like, why do we call it this? What are the reasons behind it? How does that enable our team to do this or that? Like there's got to be a good reason for it. Otherwise it shouldn't exist probably in the process somewhere. But then you take and add a whole new transition to a new platform technology, it's all foreign to most of the folks who will be using it. And it becomes even more important to do it.
Yeah.
And
like doing the due diligence. So like get the people that are impacted by these changes that need to use the system involved in participating in the conversation, I think is something that
the end user.
Yeah,
sure.
It's challenging to get, like, the more people that you have, the harder that is. But the importance of it, because they're the ones that need, as a business leader, if they're not using the system, you're either not going to get the visuals that you're expecting. You're not going to get the visual expecting. It's either going to be gaps or it's going to be bad.
Right. Bad data. So you're going to be looking at the wrong information and telling a story and making decisions based off of that.
Yeah. And a very common example of this. And again, I'm not saying this is an easy problem to solve by any means.
No.
But we've come up with some ways to start from a better place so that we can have more productive conversations. Still might take us a few months because there are a lot of people, a lot of change needs to happen. But a couple of weeks ago, I was at a fuels testing, conference, and there was a surprising number of conversations. I was not going there to talk about HubSpot, right? But HubSpot kept coming up, and it was from this place of, we just got bought by this company. So the parent company is using HubSpot already, and now me as the subsidiary or new company, we have to migrate into HubSpot, or we already have. And a sales rep said something, I knew exactly what he was talking about as soon as he said it. I've seen the industry drop down that I'm going to have to fill out in their system, and it's required. And it does not have the options that matter for our business in it.
Yeah.
So that forces me as a sales rep
to
either not create the deal because I can't fill it out. I cannot
Or
complete.
just fill it in with some garbage because I have to get
Yes,
past this step. And
right,
that's
which
usually
is
what
the top,
happens.
which is whatever the
Yeah.
top industry is on that list,
hmm Yeah, it was
right?
funny. I was talking to my wife about this today. Fun, she actually we talked on our lunch break, and she's like, I was talking about you in HubSpot today at work. She works for Paychecks, big multi-billion-dollar payroll processing and 401k, blah blah blah, and they use their Salesforce users over there, and so it's always funny from when I see her in Salesforce and listening to her talk about some of the challenges that they face because they have multiple teams, multiple divisions, multiple businesses basically within this big umbrella of Paychecks. And whether you're using Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever CRM it is, it's like what happens oftentimes is that you build the process, and you really maybe should have maybe multiple instances of the portal, or maybe pay a little bit more to upgrade to some of those enterprise level tools so you can do things with the data model that are organized. Because what you don't want to do is build a kind of one size fits all process, because that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get friction in the process where people are like, this isn't relevant to me. Why do I have to fill this out? It's noise. And then if you can't skip it, you're going to just get garbage in, or they're just going to give up, and you're going to have, adoption levels that just tank. And we see that, a lot. And that's, it's an important choice to make early on, because you're setting up basically like a ton of opportunities for frustration to happen between these teams, because
Yeah.
you're just it needs to be a little more purposeful, and some businesses are lucky, they can just, hey, we all do everything the same way. But when you start going up up market, and you get these enterprise level clients, and they're much bigger, they have again, even more important to do the planning and the mapping out there, because now you have so many different people that you can impact and touch. And then we won't even get into like what workflows do to those situations, right? So
Right. Yeah. That's why, like, I'm really upfront with everybody. Like, workflows and reports, not my jam, not my
yep.
best spot in HubSpot, because I'm focused on these conversations, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we can't agree on what
Yeah, who cares
this
about the workflows
industry
at that point,
means,
right?
like, the report is telling you nothing. And
Yep.
this is why you're having a meeting every week trying
Yes.
to figure out what the data is telling you.
Yes.
And you can't even get to the point of what you should do based on that data.
Yep. Yeah, like I had a call earlier with a client, and they have a hierarchy to the companies that they work with. Okay. They're like in the healthcare space, and you have big like networks, and then you have like these individual, like then you have like the main hospital, and then you have like different branches and offices of physicians and things like that. And I look at like the University of Rochester, strong hospital here in Rochester. It's like you have the big kind of headquarters, the main hospital, and you have all these ancillary, all these branches, and then they have the physicians, that trickle down there. And it was really important for us to understand kind of that hierarchy and how it works, because at one point in the conversation they said it's important for us to be able to kind of like roll everything up, so we can kind of see like from that specific like network how that impacts the business. And therefore it's like, okay, well, now we have to make sure that we're associating these things correctly, and that they actually have some kind of a relationship in the database. Because if we don't build things with that in mind, the fact that we have to either use some specific association labels, or better yet, maybe a custom object to track this other thing, because they are enterprise users. If we can't build that into the model, then it's like, I'll never be able to give you that report the way that you want me to. And
Right.
whatever I cobbled together is not going to really give you the full story.
Yeah.
But that's a
And,
report you're going to ask me for in 6 months from now,
oh, for sure. If
right?
they wait that long.
You have to wait
And
that long, right?
and I think that's what we get excited about, is you can do things like this in a system like HubSpot, but we're so used to having it not work that way. Because I guarantee the only way you can understand these kind of strategic elements for your business is that somebody somewhere has just the most magnificent spreadsheet or slide deck you've ever seen, where they spend a lot of time taking data, like this is where like AI can do a lot of this for you if you give it the guardrails you need. And then it, right, that's why we know we can do this kind of stuff in HubSpot. But that person said like, okay, I'm just going to show visually how all these relationships work. And then we're just going to take the dollar amounts and then we're going to put them together. And now here's the dashboard that we want in HubSpot. And we don't understand data modeling, and we don't understand, you know, the process that it took for you to ask your manager to create 4 slides for their department. And they had to talk to their whole sales team to get all that information. Then it was all individual calls, and everybody's curating data and context along the way. That is a lot to systematize, right?
Yeah.
But you can systematize that stuff now.
Yeah.
Right. It just, you got to understand, that's been the most eye-opening thing for me over the last year or so, is the more in-person interactions I have. I was just in Indianapolis last week, walking process, right? During the open business hours, right? So I'm having very specific feedback conversations about this process we're supposed to bring into HubSpot that's never been in HubSpot before. And you can't find any information how to do it in HubSpot because it's post-sales. We haven't done stuff like that before. Talking to everybody, as you talk to people, as you're in that environment, so much happens verbally. Like there's so much verbal communication.
Oh yeah.
Right. And the fun challenge for me in these moments is that you can find out how to do that, how to systematize that in HubSpot and say, here's when we got to structure it. But now here's the places we don't need to structure it. Just record it, do whatever you need to do to
just
bring
get
that into
get the
HubSpot.
data in there, and we'll get it out in a good way. Yep. With the AI tools that we have now. Yeah.
And like really powerful stuff. But if you don't understand, so we're in those moments, we do so much natural kind of translation and transformation as human beings. It's like, we even joke about it. It's like, oh, I speak Zach Hussion. I know what he's saying. I've worked with him enough. When he says this, I know it actually means this.
Right.
If you go and ask AI to figure out what he's like, no chance. AI doesn't have 10 years of context on how Zach works yet. But you can give it that context if you know it needs it to be able to do things like that.
Well, there's like that happy balance between, it's like we need this structured input that come into the system a certain way so that we can, you know, analyze that data, make the decisions, and leverage AI to do some stuff. And there's still some purposeful, like we have to get it in still a certain way, right? And then there's like all this other stuff, which is more the emails, the phone calls, the meetings, the things that you just naturally do as a rep in your customer facing role. It's like we're getting better and better about being able to extract things out of that. So like today, you may say, when you go to meet with somebody, what kind of meeting was it? Right? What's the meeting type? Was it in person? Was it virtual? Was it like a demo or a discovery call? Was it, you know, right? You have different types that you could assign to that meeting in HubSpot. And that's a manual input by the sales rep as they're kind of booking it, right? If you're not using some workflow to automatically create it in some way. But you're really not too far off from just being able to say, just have your meeting. And then the system will just take a look at what happened in that meeting and the context of the subject of that meeting. And they'll say, oh, this was an in-person visit because there's a physical address there, looks like. It's not usually where you start when you're building it out for a team from day one. But again, it's like if you don't have the right process and the definitions and understand the, you know, how things all fit together, it's really hard to get to that end goal of just being able to say, we just want the sales team to come in and just sell and spend less of this time doing administrative stuff. And it's like, yeah, we want to get there too. Right. But it's like, it's not going to happen if you just try to just cram it in there and without any kind of planning. Right. Or maybe like you'll get there eventually, but it's just going to take a long time and cost you a lot more money, like you said.
Well, the odds are you don't get there
Yeah,
eventually.
it really is. The
And
odds are against you.
right,
Um,
people don't like using these systems.
yeah,
They know it inherently gets in the way. Like we talk about all the time, like best salespeople
yeah,
often are not relying on systems that get in their way. They use just enough of it
hmm,
to keep the relationship, to understand context of relationship
yep,
and build trust and sell stuff, right?
hmm,
And can I be there all the time when the client needs me to be? Like those are the two goals they have. Like systems, when you spend money on systems like HubSpot, if it's not doing that, that should raise a red flag.
yeah,
Um, but when things like, do we agree on what this meeting outcome means,
yeah,
like for the business, right? If we're
right,
trying to figure that out, I'll say it like this: if we're trying to figure that out real time while we're building in HubSpot, I think I've gotten good at making that a positive because that's often when you start to uncover, like, oh, I was thinking about it this way
yes.
and I
Oh, yeah,
see it,
absolutely.
right?
Like you hear, like, oh, we've already had these defined, and you start building right there on the spot in HubSpot, and they're like, actually, no, I don't like that one.
Right.
Yeah, why
The
do we do that one,
problem,
guys?
the nuance is if you don't set that expectation ahead of time that it's going to be a little messy as we go, and that's okay,
Mm-hmm.
you start to get to these places where either we take the time right now and we step back from this information that which most people don't want to do. Remember, we want to get in HubSpot and start using it.
Fast. Yep.
We decide, okay, we just won't do that right now,
Yeah.
right? And yet your team is measured on this thing that we're talking about.
Right.
So inherently, they do other things in HubSpot, and then you got to export that data, talk to them verbal. How many meetings did you have this week, Zach?
Right.
What happened?
Yeah.
Tell me about them.
Yeah, like a good example is like, hey, I want to just get I want to get people into the system and logging activities, and I want them to get that stuff in there as soon as possible because I need transparency into what's happening. Like, I think that's a solid ask. I think there's a lot of value in being able to see, and of course, like the sooner you can get people inputting all this juicy data in there, the more we'll be able to do with it, and the sooner we'll be able to do something with it because we need to get to a certain kind of critical mass there before it's useful. And then it's like, okay, this is the primary focus, but I'll bring up a question like, okay, great. Well, tell me how your team quotes, or how you created, what qualifies like a deal being created, or right, let's get a little bit past this. Like, you got a foot in the door. Well, what happens when the person says, yes, I'm interested? Because if we're not thinking about that, because that's the natural next step that happens, and it's also hint, hint, a little bit closer to revenue, then it's like you're gonna hit that wall all of a sudden where you're like, okay, guys, like I got, I spent the last couple of weeks, I made a billion phone calls and emails and booked all these meetings, and I saw all these people, and now I have all like these opportunities like in my lap. What am I supposed to do? Oh, well, we're gonna start planning your pipeline today. So then in a couple of weeks you can start. So now you're already behind. But if we just ask a couple of these good questions up front, and then we do a little bit, and it's not an overwhelming amount of work, I don't think, to get to like an MVP for this kind of stuff. You just have to like the hardest part is like the people, it's the alignment, it's getting everybody on the same page to work together on these things and set aside the time to actually take it seriously. Because I mean, here I have like maybe a good time to show this little planning document that I whipped up.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, let's take a look here.
Because I do think it's 100% mindset in terms of can you climb this mountain? And it's almost like, can we give you enough support to like jetpack up the mountain?
Yeah,
Or can we help you realize it's actually like a little bitty hill that we're making it into a mountain because we've never done the process before. We've never seen it work.
yep,
The concept of change management is daunting.
yep.
And yeah, so I'll share the screen here.
There you go.
Maybe we could zoom in just a little bit.
Yeah, sure. How's that? A little better?
Yeah.
I can kind of zoom in and out a little bit as we need to, but yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I call the sales pipeline planning workbook. It's really more like as Hush Inbound has transitioned to Hush RevOps, right? As we've kind of moved away from more of the marketing stuff to like the bigger problem, I think, here, especially in manufacturing, is like the revenue operations challenge. This is really kind of like a RevOps workbook, and that's a great first step that I take with pretty much every client that I work with, unless they don't have Sales Hub or something. But what it does is it kind of it collects all the information that we're going to need to go build this out in the portal, and it pulls it all together in a way where we can kind of just easily like work through it as a team. And then when the admin, or the HubSpot specialist has to go do it, they're like, oh, this is great. I can just go beep, 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 done. So what we do is we say, like, what's your process on the top here? Like, just kind of like layman's terms, like, what is this step? What is this thing that happens, right? And this is where it's like the team should be they should be starting here with like, let's just talk about what this thing is and what it means, and right.
Just talk out loud. Can we just say out loud?
Yeah.
What happened?
Right.
In this great customer that we're raving about, and we want more of them. We all agree that if we could get 100 more of those things happening,
yeah, let's do it. Right.
So just tell me what happened. Just say it out loud.
Yeah.
Right.
So this first one here is just like, the prospect is identified, or a lead completes a form on your website, or a lead maybe is imported from an external source. Well, for some folks that makes a lot of sense. Other people may have a slightly different approach there. That's okay. Like, we're not asking everybody to be, completely the same flavor of vanilla here. But the point is, right, just talk about it. Get some agreement on it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but like, we should all come to some kind of consensus here. This next one, I sprinkle in like, well, is there anything that we need to think about automating at this step? It may be, a little premature to fill out that next in the process, but I keep it there because as we start building onto this, automations come into play, and it's nice to kind of see them overlaid here on like the different stages and things that happen. So usually we save this for later. We don't want to like jump into workflows or reporting until we've kind of figured all this other stuff out.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you have like a lead that goes through like different statuses or stages, which got a little bit more complicated, but in a good way, because I really like the lead object in HubSpot. So we have a lead stage in HubSpot, but we have a lead status for the contact record. Also, just a really quick workflow. You can get those things aligned very easily, not hard to do. But we follow here in the beginning of our kind of customer's journey. Well, what happens, right? A lead, and this is actually not the beginning of it because we're kind of skipping over the awareness consideration stages. But we have a new contact, new lead in the system. They just start out as new, and maybe we align the life cycle stage there that says it's a lead. And they progress through from new to attempting, I'm trying to make contact with them, to, connected. We've actually like had a phone call or they responded to something, and we either disqualify or qualify them. And it's, the life cycle stage here would, potentially move along and follow it, easily just automate this as well. So you don't have to ever manually touch a life cycle stage in your system. It should just happen. Just like you shouldn't really have to do a whole lot with lead stages or statuses unless you're qualifying or disqualifying somebody. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, you're qualified. So we kind of move over from, the lead world into now like our deal stages. So as soon as you qualify that lead, the life cycle stage bumps to opportunity, as long as you have some of those, nice little buttons checked on in HubSpot and it makes sense in your world. I found somewhere it doesn't, but most of the time you create a deal, move the life cycle to opportunity, and that deal stage now starts as a new deal. And it progresses through stages until you get to close won or close lost. You can kind of put in your deal probabilities here. So usually I tell people, give it your best guess, use some kind of data if you can. I don't put a lot of weight behind these. It really don't make a whole lot of difference until like you have a lot of good data, and then you can kind of backfill these in with like what the actuals are, and then have a process to kind of tweak them over time. So I usually don't put a lot of emphasis on this, but a lot of people still are like, where are my probabilities? So they're in there. And then these are kind of like, these are the properties that are, conditions for you to get through to that next stage. So like for example, if you're going to create a new opportunity, at a minimum, you need an associated contact, an associated company, a deal name, a deal owner, a deal stage. But, probably not reasonable for us to ask you for like an amount or a close date at this point. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But in this case, we'll say these are optional, right? Different strokes, different folks, different use cases here for that. And then you get to stage 2 and it's like, okay, well, all this stuff is still required. But now maybe we also want to add in, by this date, by this time you have to have a close date. So like that's not required too. And maybe we add another property here that's, optional or required. And we start funneling people kind of through these process, through the process. So we're getting that progressive information until we win or lose a deal. And then, if you lose a deal, what's your lost reason? That kind of thing. And then as you're going through the lead pipeline here, you can also do the same thing. Like you can say, like, in order to get from from new to attempting, or, maybe really, I think the really only important one here is in order to get to a qualified lead, you need to have understanding of things like budget, authority, need, time frame, things like that. Like pick a methodology to follow. And so this has been really helpful for like that initial conversation, the initial planning. And this is, one of the tools that we'll kind of bring into the conversation to help do that. And it's been working out pretty well. Any thoughts on that? I don't know if you've ever seen this one before today. I stole it from it was like a HubSpot-y thing, I think, that came out a while ago. And then I'm like, I just need to take this and elevate it a little bit to fit the way I want it to work. And I think this is kind of like the 2.0.
Yeah, I think the structure is important, because if we can get to the common language place, because so much like direct or indirect adoption or lack of adoption comes from I see the word on the screen.
What does it mean? Yeah.
What does it mean?
So
what is this data actually telling us?
This is usually like one tab in kind of the whole RevOps framework that we're working on, because you might have another tab here, and this is where you're talking about like definitions, right? And you might have another tab here, or this one is where you're doing property mapping, because you have like an integration running, and this one right here is going to be more like your like the process, flow chart that we could take in from Lucid or something. And you start building on so that it just kind of starts really painting this beautiful picture of like how the business actually works. And if this, then that, like, what are all these different scenarios we need to take into account? And you're spot on. It's like, what does this mean? And what is an opportunity or a deal in our world? Like what triggers that event? Or, like we talked about before, like people like to rename objects in HubSpot, because, the standard objects. Certainly if you're going to create a custom object, create whatever the heck you want. But, calling contacts something different, or companies something different. Trying to align with how they, what the company uses internally. There's some pros and cons to that, I think. I think it's not too hard, I think, for most people to, when you're going through your like a training, or you're looking through the the process documentation that your company is hopefully giving you on this thing, to say, this is a contact in HubSpot, or this is a company in HubSpot, this is a deal in HubSpot. This is what a deal means in our world. This is what a company is in our world. This is what a contact, this is what these things mean. And I think that there's part of the tech transformation, part of that change management is like, you have to get out of doing things the way you've been doing them for the last 50 years and be open to maybe thinking about them a little bit differently. Because if you want to just keep on doing the same thing you've been doing, then I think you might be getting some similar results than what you've had.
That's almost never why you buy HubSpot.
Right.
Like you've said, and you want something to happen that hasn't been happening before.
Right.
Right. Like whether that's growth, more leads.
Right.
Do it, like giving your team better tools, whatever it is, creating a better customer experience. Like that's why you invest in the tool. And that inherently requires change. And I think this is where SaaS has done a great disservice in saying that, oh, we can handle that for you, right? Just buy HubSpot, and out of the box, it'll do these things, right? And it's easy to use, right? It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it hasn't been fine.
Yeah.
It's
I don't think
50%
that.
adoption rate
Yeah.
is not fine. And I think that's where what I'm going to be talking about a lot more um, is that, like, I think AI is here to help remove a lot of unnecessary complexity that has been created in support of getting these very complex systems and trying to keep it simple in
Yeah.
ways that don't make sense for the complex buying behavior and customer behavior that we need to manage. At the end of the day, we need complex systems.
Mm-hmm.
This is where, like, for manufacturing, like these leaders, you look on the production side of the wall, lots of complexity that people have figured out
Yeah.
how to implement the right way for their business
But it
because
was
they're
all
the,
it was all free. It didn't cost them anything to do that, right?
yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah, just
They pay lots of money for that,
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
every year to get audited, and like we won't even go there.
yeah,
um, so they can handle complexity at
yeah.
some level, right? But I think um, what I'm going to start talking about as we launch the first team next week, I'm doing a little bit of a rebrand right now, is this opportunity to work alongside AI. Because I tell you what, AI is going to solve this for us, whether we wanted to or not, because it just does not work with complexity that doesn't make sense, which is a lot of the language that we use, right? And the fact that we just decided to call things the way that Salesforce has called them. And that's why we use opportunities versus deals. And
Right.
so this 25-year complexity code is how I've been referring to it. I think I've cracked it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it starts with the language that we use, because we were talking a little bit about this earlier today. And I've been through various seasons of this concept of businesses thinking that they're different,
Right.
right? And it,
Yes.
and it started from a place of, they ask you answer, like Marcus shared one of his go-to
Yeah.
lines is, everybody thinks this won't apply to them, when really everybody in the room is the same. Then it got to a place of, mission statements, right? Or
Right.
values, like our people are the
Yes.
difference,
Yes.
right? As
We care more.
right, as if it's a good difference. But
Right.
now I'm at a place where your people are the difference, but often not in a good way, right? Because almost everybody has baggage related to the way they think it should be done, the
Mm-hmm.
way they've experienced it, right? Inside of the organization, is it the marketing person in charge of HubSpot, or is it the salesperson, or
Or
is it the service
IT.
person, or is nobody in charge of HubSpot
Yeah.
because the business system of record is over here in the ERP, right?
Right.
Um, all those things are different within, and it creates like this local complexity to the situation.
Yeah.
So even though we have these tried and true processes, as long as we're using words that always need to be explained no matter what,
Right.
it creates the space for this, just because it's hard work to get people together to agree on definitions of things
Yeah. And
while
I
they
think
have
it
this expensive system sitting in front of that they cannot wait to start using, right?
yeah. Yeah. They're like, why are we wasting time on this? I think it's you should be investing a good amount of money in the process, just like you're like, especially as it gets more and more complex. If you have a really complex manufacturing process, you've invested in the consultants, in the technology, in the tools, in the research, in the data, in the R&D, in the people. But then the other stuff just kind of like, it'll just figure itself out, and it's really not so much different. It's just more of a data problem than like a engineering, mechanical engineering challenge,
Yeah.
possibly, right?
I always say the challenge is that it's very much zeros and ones on that side of the wall,
Right.
where humans are like
Yeah.
uh,
There's a lot of politics
quantum
in play,
particles.
right? There's egos, there's personal agendas, right?
Yeah.
There are people who don't like each other. They don't get along,
They
right?
can
And
literally be like zeros or ones, and it depends on when you look at them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what's super awesome now is
I think
some of these
they might
AI
even throw like a
systems,
couple 6s or 7s in there.
right? Some of these systems can evaluate that for you real time, like consistently, if you
Yeah.
give it the guardrails and understanding of what it means for your business, but it almost always relates to the context of your business,
Do
right?
you think that people overcomplicate it like way more than it needs to be? So like when you go back to that thing
Oh
where
yeah.
it's like we're special, we're different, we call this thing, you know, X when the rest of the world calls it Y. And it's like, okay, well, we can make customizations that reflect that. But like take the software piece away from it and just like pretend that none of that existed. And you're joining this company and maybe you're fresh out of school, or they certainly didn't probably teach you how they call it X and the rest of the world calls it Y. You definitely learned Y. Or you came from another business and they didn't call it that. Maybe you've worked for 10 other businesses and none of them called that. And now all of a sudden, you're learning their business, but now you're also learning it as if you had to learn German or Spanish or Chinese or something as well, because you're like, I don't know what this word means. What's this acronym or what's this? Exactly. So it's just there's a whole, and then none of it's documented. There's no,
Right.
like we said, there's nowhere for me to go and say, well, I'm a brand new rep. I'm going through like a really nice formal onboarding program, and oh, by the way, they have all these resources for me. There's like a kind of like a wiki that just says like this is what all of our stuff means. Wouldn't it be even cooler if it was plugged into like a HubSpot AI agent and I could just prompt the system to be like, hey, what what does it mean? What is an MQ? What's the definition of an MQL in our, or like what does it mean when I have to look up this one, whatever that may be. It's just I need the answer, and right now I have to, you know, hey, over there, what's that? What's this mean? Like shouting across the cubicle still, or slacking to someone
Yeah.
about like, right? Or most of the time, just like I don't have time to figure this out, so I'm just gonna guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna, I'm about to share my screen, and before I do, like some of the words still need to be explained that I'm about to talk about. But imagine a world where we just use words that everybody already knows,
Like some
like
standardization.
some definition to,
Is this
right?
the USB-C of?
And that's where, if
Yeah.
we agree that every business is different on the inside because of all these things that Zach just mentioned, and the people, they've been doing things differently. So what happens is like you might think you're aligned with somebody, and then you just work with them long enough, and maybe for the past 6 months, I was saying lead, and it meant this to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're both CRM power users. Like we have a good history, but there was just this little bit difference
Yeah.
that you look back and all the data now gets looked at
Yeah.
differently.
I mean, I wasted like, hold
Right.
on, I just gotta tell you, I probably wasted like 15 minutes on a phone call this morning with a guy on my team because one of our clients calls their sales reps estimators. And it's like they're literally sales reps, right? They do the estimating as part of the job, like just like a lot of sales people have to calculate pricing and costs and stuff. Some people have dedicated costing teams that do that, right? So we're talking about estimators, and I'm thinking tickets. There's got to be a ticket process, and we're talking for 15 minutes, and he's like, these are the sales reps, right? Remember? And I'm like, oh my, it's right. I keep on getting thrown off because you call them estimators. And it's just like,
Yeah.
doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And if I was coming in off the street, I would think that you were a sales rep.
Yeah.
So anyways, I had to
Yeah.
just throw that in there because it happened this
No, it's
morning.
fair. I think like inside sales, account management, like all the account executive, like we certainly, it's not just on SaaS and the tools we use. Like we found ways to overcomplicate all of this,
Mm-hmm.
right? But what I'm finding is when we can get to this place where we're using words that we don't need to overthink, like that's like step two is that, okay, we feel comfortable not overthinking it. Like if it's audience and it is like, what are they doing there? This is, if they were in our if we had them as a contact record, right? And we see them in person
Mm-hmm.
and we said, uh, it looks like you're learning right now. Like, is that like, would you say that about yourself? Like, yeah, like, oh yeah, I am
Yeah.
learning,
Yeah.
right? Nobody's ever gonna say, yeah, I'm an MQL.
Right.
I'm a lead,
Right.
right? I'm
Right.
an opportunity. I'm a
Yeah.
prospect,
Hey, are you just doing a little research on this thing? Are you kind of curious? Are you looking to try to maybe, solve a problem here?
right?
Versus, hey, I saw like that there's some intent over here. Let me sell you something, right?
Right.
And let me
And
qualify you and put you in a bucket real quick.
right. And this is how bad it is, in my opinion, is that hand raiser, I believe, should be easy to define.
Yeah.
Let's say there's no software around and we're just going to the store, right?
Yeah.
Most people I've met, most humans, do not like it when somebody comes up to them and says, "Can I help you find anything today?
Yeah.
What can
You're
I
looking
help
for
you
something
with?"
specific. What can I help you with? It's like, no, when
Right?
I need help, I'll look for the guy in the blue vest.
Right. So I'm looking at the t-shirt rack and I'm there to buy something, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna buy something. But if you come to me before that and I didn't raise my hand to say,
Yeah.
can I get some help? Or I'm bringing it to the register. I am taking an intentional, direct action that you don't have to perceive. You don't have to try and figure out what I might be up to, right? This is something like, I want to talk to a sales rep, right? I want to schedule a demonstration. Like, that is a hand raiser.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily somebody who's watched a video halfway through on a pricing page and then they went to the security page and okay, yeah,
Yeah.
they've done enough stuff.
Yeah.
We think they're raising their,
Yeah.
like,
They downloaded an ebook.
right?
Let's give them a call
And it's
tomorrow.
like, no, they didn't, right? That should be very easy. And I'm still working on the statement of I am buying. It's not I am buying right now,
Yeah.
but it's this is how hard it is to
I'm
grow
looking
out
for
of.
somebody to help me facilitate a
Yeah.
purchase potentially
I need help to solve my
from you.
problem, and I think you guys might be a fit,
Yeah. It's
right?
basically just like I need help. I'm at a
Right.
point now where I've done as much research as I can. I've talked to as many people as I can. And the only thing I can do now, because there's nowhere else for me to get this information from, really, it's like if there was a self serve path, I probably would have done it, but
Right.
I need your help. And this is where you're
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm already 80% of the way through the buying process. Now I need
Yeah.
sales to come in and do what sales does best, which
Right.
is build trust, help, answer questions, add value, like make sure that there's going to be like a good alignment here so that when we decide to ink the deal, both sides are happy.
Yes. And where we get into trouble with the old language is like we have no choice but to make so many assumptions because the language that we're using is not clearly
Right.
stating the
Yes.
current state. Like, what's the story here? And I'm getting really excited about this because building out some agent stuff where you can help the agent, give it guardrails to help you understand constantly what the story is.
Yeah.
Like, you always have a good. And so the two spaces, obviously, that can't get away from the complexity of these stages is what it turns out to be, right? Like hero and value creator. Because this is where the worst things happen,
Mm.
right? For businesses. The handoff between the stages and lost deals out of nowhere when you thought you had it in the bag,
Oh, I hate those.
right? So what we're defining as the hero, and well, this one, they might not say, yeah, I'm the hero, but everybody's the hero of their own story kind of deal. If you know story brand, you know what I'm talking about. Like, super proven that every human feels like this, right? But they might not be, and they often aren't the only one involved in the buying decision. Um, have we
Rarely are they
empowered
the only
them?
one. Yeah.
Have we empowered them to get everybody else on their side to the table, right? Are do they have conviction? Because most of the time it's like, oh, I love HubSpot. I don't need it. I know. HubSpot can
Right.
work, but I'm
It's just,
not
but
sure.
yeah, I have 3 more people above me that need to be
Right.
convinced, and there's a, a formal budgeting. It's like, and they're
Yeah.
not going to just give me the 20 grand a year for the licensing or whatever it's going to be
Right.
without some justification to that. And then what happens is you ultimately try to convince them that we need to have these decision makers on the call, so we can have that, because so many times they go try to sell it, and then it's just, that's dead. It's dead. I literally
Right.
got an email today saying, "Hey, I don't think I did as good of a job selling this to my boss as you did to me."
Oh man, that's a perfect example,
Yeah.
because we're not AI and we can't process information. It's very hard for me to create a diagram that does not make this look like a linear journey,
Right.
right? When it is anything but linear. Because what happened with Zach just now, like what he said, where if we understand that this person does need to be empowered, and Zach can't always be in the other conversations with the other people, but
Mhm.
a video might be able to,
Sure.
right? Uh, and where I'm excited about where this can go is, let's say we find that 10% where we're not getting, like, it, this is where it goes wrong, and we haven't gotten the technical person on the call yet. Our champion doesn't understand how important this part is, but we can't give our hero the technical manual of how this stuff works, right? Maybe we can give them the blog post about the very high level about why it's important.
Right.
And that means for that part of the conversation, they're still in audience mode. Like if we come in trying to give them technical documentation that would be somewhere else in the process, like they're not going to have the conviction they need to then go talk to the person and say, okay, this person understands this subject inside and out, and they need the researcher type content,
Yeah.
right? AI is going to be able to help sense that in call recordings and suggest, like, hey, this person needs this, this person needs one of these. Last time this happened, this is what we did, right? If we give it the guardrails that I'm
Mhm.
talking about right now, value creator is sales and service handoffs have really never been like solved for, uh, outside of the situations where there's a full funnel account manager that's responsible for the relationship, the whole process, right?
Right.
Because that's what customers need. Uh, Often we have situations where, all right, we just sold HubSpot. Now we have this implementation team that you never met before coming in, and we've got, oh, the owner bought HubSpot, but now the individual stakeholders got to implement it.
Right.
They weren't involved in the process at all. So there's
Right.
people who have no relationship
No
have to
context,
start to
no
work,
common goals, no alignment. It's like, go
right?
figure this thing out and make it better.
They have to start to work together and build a trusted relationship to effectively work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we just label them as customer, and vendor, it's like assumptions fly about, oh, this person must know this thing, or surely they're obligated. They paid for it, so of course they're gonna be okay with it. No, right? And as I work through this, it's like all those people in that moment need to create value, right? In some way, shape, or form. So that's why that stage is called that. But the rest of the way, it's like, yeah, we need people adopting systems. So like, let's just call it. Like if they're adopter, like are they using the system or not? Okay.
Right.
If they're not, well, they should not be labeled adopter, right? Like,
Yeah.
so simple stuff. Because what we have to get to is, can we architect data in the CRM to represent these things in a common case, right? I'm calling it signals here as the lead. George mentioned yesterday, as soon as we're allowed to rename it, he's going to call it conversations, which I
Yeah.
kind of love that. Um, but this is the common thing. Like, okay, so if we believe that we understand and have clear on and we're aligned on what this means for the business, the conversation about when a deal should be created all of a sudden gets very easy. Because if we don't want to spend resources on managing a deal or an opportunity, if somebody's only in an audience stage,
Or even a researcher one, right?
right? We're not going to try and work around deals and add some signal stages or lead stages to the deals just so we can start to represent it in the system. That's
Right.
not what deals and opportunities are for. They're for this part,
Yes.
right? And you get to this place where it's like, love them. I love them to death, but HubSpot makes us explain terminology so often that it causes opportunities for just these moments of like, all right, we've gotten off track here. We just spent 10 minutes talking
about the semantics over
what
what we
this
call
means,
things, what it means.
right?
Yeah, I had 2 of those calls this week with the
Right.
same, like where we and the client was frustrated because again, why are we spending time? Why do we just spend 15 minutes trying to figure out what this means? Well, because if not, we're going to spend the next 5 months misaligned on what that means.
Yeah. And
Right?
and watch when the new people
Yeah.
like come in that have
Yeah.
been calling it something else. That's where like data governance more around the language that we use and how we define things versus how the data gets entered into the system. We spend so much time on that.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I
then
think
we,
it's an important one, but it's like it doesn't matter as much if no one knows what anything means. Yeah,
right.
there's no
And if I don't
context.
understand the story being told,
Yeah,
because most often the easiest trap is to just build some beautiful dashboards
yeah,
because we
I
got
know.
the data in there. We're all excited. And then we review on the weekly call, and
Yeah,
nobody knows what the dashboard is telling us. It looks awesome,
yeah.
but
I mean, going back to what you were saying earlier, though, it's like you were saying, kind of like how HubSpot makes it difficult because we have to re-educate people, tell people like, what is this? This is what this means in HubSpot's world and their language. And I think that there's also some positives to that though
oh
too,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
Because it's like when you're coming from a kind of processless, when you're coming like just from the somewhere out there in the universe floating around, um, it helps bring that structure into something where it's like, well, we never had anything documented. So it's actually really easy for us to step into this and say, we're just going to adopt. Because if you, when you, if you were to build like a brand new company and like follow like a HubSpot playbook, like this is what we call things. These are our best practices. This is how you are. This is kind of how we intended for you to set up the portal and use things in our world. It's like, well, they did spend a lot of time and a lot of money with some really smart people coming up with like what is a good way to do this. So I think that there is some there's some weight behind like adopting that, but then you get to a different level where you're like, okay, now we have the mindset, we have the right people, like we're at this certain stage in our development where now maybe we can start taking it to that level that Chris is talking about, where we're going to try to align things a little bit differently with what we call them and why, put some more meaning behind it, because we went from just like out of the box, like you called a deal, we'll call it a deal, to well, we actually we did a little retreat. We all got together and we talked about these things in a really meaningful way. And we came up with some really great ideas. And there's a why behind it. So
Yeah,
now
that
let's change that thing.
that's the key, right? Like I love using HubSpot as a training tool from that perspective of getting people to think about things differently.
Yes.
Then we got to take the next step of it still needs to matter for our business.
Yep.
And a recent example as we wrap up is like when we use spreadsheets and things like QuickBooks,
Mm-hmm.
which are very like data in, data out. We're not trying to transform it. We're just like, we want it easy as possible to just capture and record things, right? So in QuickBooks, you have quotes and you have invoices,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when that's all you have, those things start to be used for a lot of the different types of objects that we
Sure.
see in HubSpot, right? And an example is quotes, right? A quote is meant to be for a transactional thing. Like we have a relationship, we understand what you want. Here's what it's going to cost, right? But there's a reason it's that doesn't have contracts in it. Like it's not meant to be like reviewed over 12 months and handed back and forth and iterated on, right? But then you always have the request of, man, we'd love to keep better track of our quotes, especially the high dollar ones, and we got to build a follow-up system like for that. Guess what? We don't use quotes for that in HubSpot. Like that's what deals are for. That's called sales management. And that's why you use a sales management object. It doesn't mean you don't use quotes,
They have a place.
right? Quotes are for
Yes.
the transaction, the promise of the understanding what's
Right.
happening, right? Sales management happens in this other object. And as you come in, I get it. It doesn't make sense. I've been doing this in one object. Now you're telling me two objects. I don't understand.
Right.
And so now I'm starting from the place. And this is all I'm asking everybody is like, we have to have permission to raise our hand and say, this thing that we've been doing, the way we do it doesn't make any sense to me. And, or Chris, the way you're talking, that doesn't make any sense to me. What you're saying right now doesn't make any sense. Right. And then we talk about why.
Right.
Because it's either a process, like if we've never had that process before, then it's process education.
Yep.
Right. If we've using terms we've never seen before, like there's some business education that often has to happen. Right?
The challenge. So this is where I usually run into a challenge, though. It's where it's like, well, who's the smartest guy in the room? Because you run into these egos, and someone's like, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. This is how we've always done it. This is, this is my style, right? I'm gonna lift my leg and pee on it a little bit. Like I mark my territory on this. And who are you, new guy, coming in here and telling me that there's a different kind of methodology or philosophy that I need to understand? And now you're telling me I got to learn something. And then there's kind of like, well, what makes you right and me wrong? And it's oh boy, I don't know. I wish I had a little ticker here that showed you the thousands and thousands of hours that I put into this kind of stuff. I thought that maybe my certifications and the fact that I have, platinum HubSpot status and a bunch of great testimonials would help too. But, like some people, I feel like if that's a whole nother conversation. I feel like that's
that's why I,
I
try to avoid like ROI conversations and this case
yes.
study. Like everybody finds reasons for that not to work for me.
I don't use any of those. What's the ROI of HubSpot? I don't know.
Right. No, that's where like I've had success saying, bring it back to the customer. Like not our business, not the way HubSpot says to do it, like our customers. So salesperson, you said, you know how it works. You've been successful.
Tell me how it
help
works.
us understand why.
Yeah.
Right. And then as we break down the why, we start to match that with what we're trying to accomplish. And that starts to help create objective like conversations about things. This is another place I think AI is going to help. And by the way, HubSpot's been helping with this for a while. If you can systematize the thing, it automatically takes the egos out.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is the data. This is what
it's like you can't.
It
is black and white at this point. It's like it's not me. It's just
and
I
it's
am
based
just
on our agreement.
Yeah.
That we had at the beginning of the process that this is what this means. If that has changed, that's okay. We just need to discuss that part and decide that as a group, not just say, oh, that hasn't been working for me.
Yeah.
Right.
No, this has been a good chat, man. Like I feel like I think this was my favorite conversation we've had so far. It took us a couple to find a little bit more momentum, maybe me to feel a little more comfortable with just being my kind of brutally honest abrasive self.
No, this is what we're here to take or never put the kid gloves on, honestly.
No.
Because there's real opportunity for most businesses, and it's painful to see that not realized and understand the pain. So we are seeing some wins though. And there are some some improved ways of doing this and thinking about this.
Yeah.
And, hopefully
Oh,
you were
I mean,
able to take some nuggets away
I'm
from
I'm
today.
highly encouraged. Like there's some great teams out there doing some really awesome work, and they have the right ingredients, right? They have the right culture and the right, budget, the right, authority to do things. Like it all fits together really well. And so I think it's like good HubSpot partners or good HubSpot experts ask a lot of questions. They ask why a lot, and it's not because we're being annoying. It's because we care a lot. We're really trying to make sure that we put together something that is good quality for you and your team, because we've all sat in a seat and we know how shitty it is to have like this like awful CRM that dictates our day, or friction internally between the teams, and it doesn't make anyone's life enjoyable, especially ours. We don't want to have to hear about like how like awful this is either. So like we're doing it to in everyone's best interest, ours and especially the clients. It's like,
Yeah.
so it's like ask, answer the questions and be open to, thinking a little differently.
Yep. And we're going to be here every Wednesday to help
That's
you do
right.
that. So
To get over the
uh,
HubSpot hump.
thanks for joining us today, and appreciate you always, Zach.
Yeah, you too, brother.
And we'll see you next week, man.
All right. Sounds good.